Hello everybody, welcome back to the L1 show. Today is October 12th, 2022, and we're doing social and something else that I immediately forgot.
Quarter three is not even over yet. And
Is it business?
Business.
Oh, okay.
Big business. I think this is one of our biggest batches of business that we've seen in a long time.
Yeah.
There was very little government news this week. I suppose because we're going into the election, nobody wants to make any waves.
I was going to say, we're going into nuclear war, but whatever.
Yeah, that would be a wave, wouldn't it? But let's start out with some new hardware that's coming at us.
Here's Google's Pixel 7, the Pixel 7 Pro starting at $600 and $900. The battery was a little anemic. That's weird, because don't you need a lot of battery to have constant always-on analytics?
That seems to be the big new feature is the better tensor core. They say it's going to do a whole lot of things other than just pictures. It's going to make your pictures better, but also security and some other things like that.
I think this might be the first marketing photo I've seen of a phone where someone's actually using it as a phone. It felt weird. I was like, what? They're usually almost always using like the camera or like an app.
I don't even like using a phone as a phone.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Please never call me.
I would probably just wear a Bluetooth ear thing all the time, but I just don't like the way it feels.
It feels like it catches all the grease on your face and you're just smudging it on a screen.
Yeah. And I don't want to be an AirPod person.
I'm sure they'll give you an implant soon. Well, I gotta say, Spotify, I'm thinking about leaving it just because there's so much trash on there that I don't care about. I don't want podcasts on Spotify. I don't want books on Spotify.
Spotify dives into audiobooks with a library of over 300,000 titles. This is because Audible is a giant dumpster fire of awful terribleness.
I feel like it's pretty easy to avoid stuff you don't like on Spotify.
All the podcasts I listen to disagree wholeheartedly.
Audible will happily sponsor stuff. We have turned down Audible sponsorship because you can't get... You remember how in the beginning there was music and then there was music with DRM, and then Apple said, all right, we'll sell you DRM-free MP3s. And then Apple decided that they would delete MP3s that didn't have DRM if it happened to find them with that one update. And then they said, whoops, they're bad. Hope you have a backup. It's kind of like that with Audible, except Audible has always been, you must have our DRM, and you can only enjoy it with our client. Their client is everywhere, but it's not the benevolent kind of DRM like Steam. It's actually kind of insidious.
Amazon owns Audible, right?
Yeah.
Oh.
But Audible does give you, it's like the Netflix style stuff. In addition to, you get credits every month or something, right?
Yeah.
Spotify straight up, you just buy them.
Yeah.
So it really doesn't give you any advantage to use audiobooks on Spotify other than to trap you into the Spotify ecosystem.
Could you buy it on Spotify and export it as DRM-free MP3s?
I seriously doubt it. I can't say no to that, but I seriously doubt it.
That's what I want. Where's the service that gives me DRM-free? I'm going to buy this, and then I will have my file. Thank you very much. There will be no going into my device and deleting it a la Kindle 1984.
You better not even dream about storing that file anywhere but the cloud.
I can't wait until it's a felony to store an encrypted data set of things that, I actually legitimately own.
I think that sounds a little crazy, but in the short term, that would be a felony if you don't turn over the password when demanded.
Yeah.
I want your whole collection of Star Trek episodes now.
I mean, I've got really good, quote unquote good quality 720p recordings from over-the-air digital and things like that from before they were encrypted. And I'm going to hang on to those from now until the end of time. But at some point, some rights holder is going to be like, I scanned your network and I found this. Because TVs already do that. If you have an LG smart TV and you put stuff on a USB stick, guess what? LG's fingerprinting that. They're not doing anything with it yet, but that telemetry is transmitted back if your TV has an internet connection. File names too.
Well, the low code, no code type of the hype is everywhere. I don't think that's ever going to be anything real. But also build once. You don't want all this multi-platform stuff. We got all these different architectures. Hey, just do it once. Intel wants to be a part of that.
Intel CTO wants developers to build once and then run on any GPU. This is part of one API, but sort of a bigger system of things from Intel. They're releasing a whole bunch of stuff in addition to what this article talks about. The open AI stuff, the open sickle. It's like, oh, you can port things away from CUDA. The reality is that Nvidia has built this incredible software ecosystem. And what that buys you is that you can have 1 or 2 generations of hardware misstep and nobody will switch platforms because the inertia of changing your software is so high. That's not good for AMD. That's not good for Intel. And so Intel is putting a lot of development effort into making things more agnostic, because at least right now, in the future this might not, but at least right now that'll benefit them from a competitive standpoint. And the article, we've got another article later about AMD's purchase of, Meta's release of a platform to do much the same thing.
So one of the biggest disappointments, I would say, in recent history in terms of hardware was the Magic Leap.
Yeah.
It was really terrible. But
it was an amazing press demo, which is why it was really terrible.
They've soldiered forward, they've kept going, and they've released basically the same thing.
Magic Leap's smaller, lighter, second generation AR glasses are now available. They don't seem great.
They don't seem lighter or that much smaller.
You know what? You know who's doing AR correctly? Oh, what were you going to say?
I was going to go for the price. Go
oh,
ahead.
yeah. $32.99.
That's for the base. If you want the software, it goes up to $5.
Yeah, it's like HoloLens all over again. Tilt 5. The Tilt 5 AR glasses where you can do like tabletop board games with augmented reality. That's the right idea.
Who can afford that though? Like, who's like, yeah, I've got $5,000 to blow on a headset.
Developers that are working on the next hot thing, the next Pokemon Go. So you only need this $5,000 headset to play Pokemon Go. Okay.
Imagine that you are the kind of person who in the conference room says, you raise your hand and you say, our customers are far too stupid to figure this out. And then in order to solve that, you do something overwhelmingly more stupid.
PC World has the article, Asrock sabotages its own motherboards with a RAM slot sticker. So we got 2 of those. And one of the guys in the office went to Micro Center and bought one. And all 3 of those had stickers, and none of them will rip like that because they're laminated. So some of these boards have laminated stickers and some don't.
They probably caught it faster than PC World did.
Yeah.
And updated the process.
Yeah. Yeah, I think this was probably launch day motherboards. There was a couple people, at least one person in our forum that had this issue as well. And motherboards have always had stickers. Some large, some small, but this is the wrong kind of sticker if it will rip like that.
And some good news for you building your non-cloud Star Trek deposit. As you know, just like with cities, there's too many transistors. So instead of just having less transistors, build vertically.
1,000 terabyte SSDs could become mainstream by 2030. That's just around the corner, as Samsung plans a 1,000 layer NAND. 1 terabit. Oh, they've missed their B's and their B's. Terabit, not terabyte. But you could add 8 chips to an SSD. I guess you could do this with a 110 millimeter SSD.
It's a lot of storage. And Canon, that's right. Now that the camera world is dead, they're having to do other stuff, which they've always done other stuff. But now, for the first time in a long time, they're going to make chips because the world is desperate.
Canon is building a $345 million chip plant in Japan, its first in 21 years. That actually seems pretty cheap. They're going to be making optics that have to do with chip lithography. So not really a fab or anything like that, but it turns out these camera companies have been super useful at making products for doing the photolithography, which is how we etch silicon. Yeah.
We've also learned recently that countries are starting to limit this kind of thing in terms of export.
Yeah.
So it makes sense to start on your own right now.
Yeah.
You need something.
I know somebody in the telescope business, and he said that if you are making telescopes, it's way faster. It's like, I need a 6-inch telescope. He's like, well, you're better off starting with manufacturing a 4-inch telescope and then moving to a 6-inch telescope. That'll take less time than just starting with a 6-inch telescope. Optics are kind of the same way with Canon. That's the impression that I got.
Well, Tesla, they've had some mixed reviews lately.
Yeah.
With some of their products, but this one does seem very impressive. Of course, you can't buy this, but presumably it will help with that elusive full self-driving.
Tesla unveils a new Dojo supercomputer so powerful it tripped the power grid.
They're in Texas, right?
Yeah.
That's on brand for Texas.
I mean, if we're going by so powerful it tripped the power grid, I have not once but twice destroyed the power transformer on our block.
Oh, they can just get more transformers, right? That's easy.
The little ones, yeah. The big ones, it's not so much.
And here is something that you don't usually see. It seems that people, even the little purchases that they usually don't think too much about, they're suddenly rethinking.
Apple's App Store revenue fell in September as game purchases cooled, Morgan Stanley says. Local contacts in local grocery chains also tell us that it's basically consumer Armageddon.
They're like, for that 99 cents, I could get a couple of cans of cat food.
Yeah.
That's going to serve me well in the times to come.
We're selling potatoes and like sacks of potatoes and crap like that as fast as they can get them in, but
Mobile games, not so much.
and bags of Oreos. Nobody wants a bag of Oreos.
Oh, but I bet the generic 100-pack of sandwich cookies, I bet those are off the shelves.
Yeah.
Because those are cheap. Well, ARM, now, if you'll think back, of course, Nvidia was, they reached their hand out for ARM and it was smacked away. But before that, a lot of people think that ARM was just running itself. No, SoftBank. SoftBank bought ARM, and part of that agreement...
That's a Japanese company.
With, which is not actually a bank, it's an investment technology thing. Part of those agreements, a lot of the times they're like, listen, you have to promise you're not going to just wipe out the workforce. And SoftBank was like, dude, not only are we going to not wipe it out, we're going to double it. And I'm like, all right, we're going to hold you to that.
ARM loses 40% of UK staff despite SoftBank pledge to grow domestic workforce. So this article goes into it a little bit, but from what I've heard, basically everybody that works there, if you can find a job somewhere else, you've taken a job somewhere else, because it's the writing on the wall. The ARM really does need to do stuff that is going to be disruptive. And they can't do it on their own with SoftBank because SoftBank doesn't want to rock the boat because SoftBank is looking to get out. And so if Nvidia is not going to buy them, they're not going to be able to get an infusion of cash to do, take it to the next level or whatever. And if they're not going to be able to leave the UK, there's nobody in the UK to buy them. So they're really in a tough spot.
And the UK economy, not doing too good.
And the power supply situation possibly also not great.
Yeah, by refusing, maybe we see Apple come in and do something. But if Nvidia was permitted to buy them, then Nvidia probably wouldn't be either.
So if you did notice, this is the bad business news block.
Yeah.
AMD warns that a third quarter revenue shortfall on weaker PC demand is coming because of supply chain issues. Yeah, that's going to be $1 billion shortfall. This quarter was poised to be the first quarter where AMD surpasses Nvidia in sales. Probably not going to happen now. Although Nvidia is likely to have a shortfall as well.
But I think they're blaming supply chain on overall downturn because they don't want to say people aren't going to buy this stuff because they can't.
They also lost their customers in China. So they're not physically allowed to sell to China.
Those sanctions, they do hurt. And it doesn't seem like they're going anywhere.
Our next story was actually really good news for AMD.
Yeah, well, I guess it's good news for everybody, right? Because getting tied into ecosystems, we've learned, always bad.
Meta launches AI software tools to ease switching between Nvidia and AMD chips. So this is just like Intel. AMD is working on the same kinds of goals. It's like Nvidia has got this incumbent software system, and it is being attacked on both sides by both Intel and Nvidia in different ways. And AMD joined the PyTorch Foundation for AI. So that's a whole other thing that AMD's got going for it. But Meta, in addition to releasing the tools, it turns out Meta has actually been doing a ton of work behind the scenes to support AMD's Instinct cards. And in a lot of cases, like the MI210 and the MI250 are really, really good, better even than some of their NVIDIA counterparts. Now, they're not better at everything. They're worse at some things. But you also get the feeling that AMD is willing to deal on price. And because of that, it seems like Meta is adopting AMD stuff for their next generation thing. So that seems like that's going to be good, but apparently didn't pay off this quarter.
And of course, the EV adoption is continuing to increase, I guess, right? Maybe the economics will stop that as well. But it exposes one of the big problems with EVs that nobody wants to talk about, which is competition for limited resources. It's tough to find these parts.
Ford raises the price of entry-level F-150 Lightning for the second time in 2 months.
They're just so expensive. I would be interested in an electric car, next time we replace one, but they're so much more expensive.
Has anybody invented a solar powered vat where we can just put our waste plastic and compost and get diesel out the other side?
I think that's like a video game.
How cool would it be to have a solar composter where you just put your plastic bags and, you know, waste plastic in, and then something in there is just munching on that and it poops out diesel? That'd be great.
That's how I feel when I like make dirt out of kitchen scraps, but I don't think there's an equivalent to that for.
Don't try to put
plastic.
the dirt in your gas tank.
No.
Do not do it.
You could do wood gas. Remember wood gas vehicles?
That is definitely illegal. Don't do that. And we will continue on with the bad news. And you know it's bad when the very top companies are making the concessions.
Amazon freezes its corporate hiring and its retail business. This article also neglects to point out that Amazon had previously already frozen warehouse expansion, scaled back their existing warehouses, and is now renting out space in their super warehouses to other companies as ways of sort of staving off the crazy. This is just an additional escalation, if you will.
And like we said earlier, people, you know, they might be flocking to the value brands at this point, the cheaper products. And Amazon has some really cheap garbage that it sells through a variety of brands that it has. And it's saying, hey, people are looking for values because, you know, we're tracking everything that they do. So let's help them find those values.
Amazon is launching a dedicated hub for its affordable shopping options.
Happy Belly. I avoid the Happy Belly stuff.
I think that I have a prediction. The prediction is that over the next 5 years, we are going to see a huge number of laws passed about processed food, because a lot of people are going to get really sick and super messed up with like lifelong debilitating stuff because of food that was so processed that it immediately caused terrible bad things to happen.
You got to follow what's going on in China.
Yeah.
It is crazy.
Yeah.
It's crazy what they're doing.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm alluding to, but yeah.
They also are going to change, like, you know how there's the lowest tier Amazon Prime that you get if you're on government assistance? That's not Amazon Prime anymore. That's Amazon Access, which is also what this thing is called. So it's basically like Amazon Poors.
Yeah.
They have those special
Lower
website.
tier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And of course, Amazon needs to keep those warehouses humming, but they don't seem to do a lot of infrastructure, or maybe this is sabotage. I don't know, but there's been a lot of these lately.
Yeah.
And they never deal with it well.
Amazon suspends 50 workers who refused to work after the warehouse fire.
Was there even a warehouse to work in? Like,
Well, it was a small fire. It was a cardboard compactor.
oh,
So they throw all the cardboard in, I guess, and it gets recycled or whatever. The cardboard burst into flame. So there was a lot of smoke. That was during the day shift. So they sent the entire day shift home. But then the night shift started to show up, and they were like, no, don't go anywhere. And the moment the fire department said it's okay to go back in, they're like, get back to your stations. Now, some of these people, yeah, they might have been, you know, being a little sensitive about it. They said it smelled like smoke. So, and that was enough.
they
that
probably hadn't even cleared it out, right? Like, do they even have a lot of doors and windows for them to air out the?
Well, the fire department had done their sweep. I don't know if they consider smokiness. I assume that they consider it to some level.
And depending on what state it's in, they may require an OSHA sweep. Like OSHA will go through and be like, there's this much particulate matter and this much this, and they have to. For cardboard usually doesn't have caustic things in it, but if it was like a plastic fire, they absolutely would be required by law to do certain kinds of remediation, because you go in there and you breathe that and you have that sort of low-level visceral reaction like, oh, I shouldn't be here. There's an evolutionary reason for that.
So the big problem wasn't, like, some people did go back to work, but there was a small group that said, no, let's walk out. This is ridiculous. All those people have been suspended with pay, which is interesting. But I got to think they're on the short list to go, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Suddenly they'll be at the list of bottom performers that they get rid of.
Probably in January.
It seems likely that they were suspended with pay pending the lawyers figuring out if they have to have the OSHA review. And if they do, then it's like, oh, yeah, sorry, guys, we messed up. But if they don't, those guys are gone.
They might keep them through the holiday, though, because
Just because they're assholes.
they're desperate. And speaking of horrible, desperate companies,
Ugh.
I don't know. Like, you would think, because, you know, these guys, they're desperately waiting for Microsoft to just buy them and end the suffering. But boy, these headlines cannot be helping, and they are every day.
Activision Blizzard illegally withheld raises from unionizing workers, labor board fines. I'm not sure if it was in this article, but there was a memo or something that seemed to, or an email between executives that seemed to be, Let's hold off on the raises because as part of the union negotiation, they'll negotiate for raises, so we can give them the raises we were going to give them anyway when they negotiate. And it's just like,
Well,
you shouldn't leave a paper trail of that.
but it's weird the argument they're making. So during this negotiation lasted a while. So during that negotiation, they actually decided to give everybody a raise. So they gave everybody a raise except for these guys who were
Yeah.
organizing. And they're like, that's retaliation. And Amazon says no, or Activision says no. Go read the rules of your union agreement. While the union negotiation type stuff is going on, we're not allowed to change your pay. Now it's supposed to go in the other direction, obviously. Although I guess it could also be to try to bribe you, right?
Yeah.
And they're like, well, as long as you're negotiating this union, I'm sorry, we just can't give you that money legally. And standards. We often talk about universal standards. It would be great to have that. Of course, the whole social media universal standard is the dream of the EU and other insane people who don't know how the world really works. But it's probably not a good idea if these names are attached to your standard.
Matter Smart Home Standard officially launches. Support could come in iOS 16.1. I was delighted to see that Home Assistant apparently is already building in some of this, or some crazy person is building support for this in Home Assistant. Not sure which it is yet. So I might actually try to get some of these devices and try it out. There is a downside to this though, which is a bunch of companies have gotten together to figure out how to make their stuff work together in a consistent way. It doesn't seem to me like the consumer really got a lot of say because part of it is cloud-based. It's Apple, Google, Amazon, and Samsung. And so, that's sort of the four horses of the privacy apocalypse. So, your rights as an individual, probably not super great. But for Home Assistant, like if you have Home Assistant, if your stuff works with Home Assistant, your home automation stuff can work without the cloud. And it can work really well without the cloud. And the kinds of things that it's nice to have, like if you're away from home, you get notice of motion or notice a door opened or something. All that stuff can still function without the cloud, and it'll, and you can optionally have that kind of stuff. But it remains to be seen how this is going to benefit the individual.
I missorted that story because that was solidly inside the economic woes block. Doesn't really count as an economic woe, but don't worry.
This one's kind of one.
We're not done with the economic woes. There's more of that to come.
Most CEOs are already preparing for a recession with plans that include laying off staff and cutting spending on environmental issues, a major survey shows. Oh yeah, Meta already did that.
Already preparing for a recession. I think we're already there.
Yeah, all the companies that went hard into ESG to try to get BlackRock's money are now being like, oh no, that's not real. No, of course we're not going to stick with that. We're losing money. And this is insane, although it doesn't surprise me, I suppose.
I don't think it's accurate.
I also don't think it's that because, okay, we'll read the headline first and then we'll talk about it.
Despite inflation worries, Americans are less likely to cancel Amazon Prime and Netflix than cut spending on food.
So my husband and I were talking about this, and we were talking about the things we were subscribed to. And then he was looking at another article that I think was going over these same numbers. And one of the things they included in it was internet.
Yeah, I mean, I would definitely, I'm kind of at one with hunger at this point. I would definitely take a little hunger to keep my internet.
Yeah.
So these are people like estimations of what they pay every month, and it turns out they're super wrong to the downside.
Yeah, it's because it's sneakily designed that way.
Yeah, so you forget about it. I think we were talking, I have Spotify. He has a WoW subscription.
What's that cost these days?
I think it's like $10 a month, maybe.
It's kind of steep though for one game.
For what it is, yeah. I mean, he plays a lot. And then Prime. I think that's it. We've only got 3.
I had that AI Dungeon subscription for a while.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, no, I can't. It's such a good, fun thing to play with, but the monetization thing that they use for that is ridiculous.
At $3 a month, I probably wouldn't think about it even if I didn't play it every month. But at like more than $3, it's like, no, this has to go.
It was, yeah. And they would give you that, you had to pay a subscription, but then you also got recurring tokens every day. It wasn't unlimited. You still had to buy.
Yeah.
If you wanted to do long blocks of it, you still had to buy it.
Yeah, I think that if you watch this channel long enough, you don't need Netflix.
And a rare turnaround of companies that are actually making investments in the future right now. It all seems to be about, chips and supply chain and fixing what is horribly wrong.
Micron to spend up to $100 billion to build a computer chip factory in New York.
The pen company.
Yeah, some of this is because we've lost production capacity as a result of the global thing. Those factories shut down, and that equipment is not coming back online. It would cost more to repair the old equipment than fix the new equipment. So Micron just says, let's build a new one in New York. Makes sense.
Of course, that will take decades, so not a quick fix, but you do have to start at some point. Maybe a downturn is a good time to start that, right? And then when you hit your stride, maybe the world is better.
Or maybe we'll be dead by then.
Maybe. And then it didn't matter that you lost your money. Well, let me just say this. If any of you pre-order this, you should be tortured to death.
People are probably, it's already happened.
Oh my God.
By the time this releases.
It's going to happen, and that's why we will never be a spacefaring people.
Cyberpunk 2077 sequel Project Orion confirmed by CD Projekt Red. It'll take the Cyberpunk franchise further and continue harnessing the potential of this dark future universe.
I watched you guys play it when we were doing it on Twitch, and I didn't see the appeal.
It's actually gotten a lot. They laid the groundwork for a lot of world building, and then they just didn't do it.
Yeah.
And also the technical glitches were annoying, but most of the technical glitches have been fixed. But it's still, I did some replaying recently for benchmarks and stuff like that, and it's still really weird because you'll run up to a door and it's like the door is locked, and then it's like, oh, let's go in here. It looks like I could go in here. All the lights are leading here. The door's locked. Oh, okay. What about this door over here? Door's locked.
The repeating NPCs, the children who are just shrunk down adults, like.
Yeah.
Also, some Witcher games, which are coming first. People are real hyped about The Witcher. I could not get into it.
The Netflix series really
probably brings some people in.
Oh, yeah. I didn't realize that both of those had Netflix in it. That's smart. That's smart. Also, I just noticed this. Did you guys watch the Mario?
I did not. Yeah.
No.
It's
Chris Pratt just being Chris Pratt.
There is no Italian.
No.
But I thought it looked better than I would have ever thought it could.
Yeah, I think it'd be a cute movie to go see with like a kid.
And what's his name? The one doing Bowser.
That's Jack Black.
Yeah, it didn't do a terrible job, I thought.
No, he's voice acted before, I think, in some other kids' movies. So he's probably at home in this role.
That might not be terrible. I would never go to a theater to see it.
No.
But I might check it out later. And yeah, Linux display drivers, man, they just can't do it. They can't get it right.
Intel laptop users should avoid Linux 5.19.12 to avoid potentially damaging the display. That was what was posted to the Linux kernel mailing list because the display began flashing kind of weird. It's probably unlikely that you would damage your display, but it was kind of funny that, hey, sometimes software can tell hardware to do bad things.
Unfortunate. They have patched it.
Yeah.
But they do recommend maybe not using those laptops with Linux right now or using an old version. And here we have more removed pirate links. Yes, that's right. Even worse than the one we talked about before.
Rightsholders asked Google to remove 6 billion pirate links, in some cases preemptively, which Google only recently started permitting.
They also point out
a lot of them were not actually pirate links.
Yeah, it's all automated, obviously, and poorly. And just some ridiculous domains.
Whitehouse.gov.
FBI.gov. Disney. Disney was probably paying these people to mail out the alerts, and then they got caught up in themselves. It's just ridiculous. But they also have a new thing where all of the telecoms in some of those European countries automatically propagate the bans. So it doesn't need a human-to-human request anymore. They just accept it.
Horrifying.
We learned that Apple is more and more moving away from China and into India. And now, even more news on that.
Apple asks suppliers to shift AirPods and Beats production to India because things are heating up. And that was a pun.
Also because India's probably a lot cheaper labor pool, unfortunately.
The heat of nuclear fire.
But more importantly, no sanctions in India. And very little chance that we go to war with India in the next 3 to 4 years.
I don't know. A year ago I would have laughed if you told me nuclear Armageddon was trending on Twitter, but
I have this picture in my head of how this went down at Apple. And it was, 3 or 4 guys around a table in a boardroom. Love to have been a fly on the wall in there. And they were talking to each other. It's like, where has cheap labor and people smart enough to handle this and won't freak out too much? India. It's like, no, that doesn't, why do you say India? It's like, look, Foxconn put a factory there. we didn't pay them for 3 months and they only rioted a little bit. That's the perfect location. It's like, Jenkins, you're right. They only rioted just a little bit.
But not only that, like, look at when Modi rolled out the biometrics.
Yeah.
They didn't fight against that. Whenever they, do all these horrible things to them and lock down, turn their internet off, and they're just like, well, that's bad, but what are we going to do?
They still showed up to work the next day. It's like they didn't. You could go to your workforce and say, we're not going to pay you for a month. Sorry, but we'll pay you next month. And that would work for a little while. Here in America, everybody would immediately walk out.
Apparently in China too.
Yeah.
Well, China would be better than us, obviously, because they have done similar things in China, but you got that socio-political risk, which is just massive. And of course, India is kind of like one of the big emerging markets right now that they're trying to crack open. Vietnam and some of those other Asian countries are big, but one of the big untapped markets is Africa. Not necessarily for labor, but for like building their networks and giving them wireless. A lot of places don't have it. Up until this point, China has been king.
A lot of Huawei down there.
Of doing that. It seems like our companies are finally sticking their toes in that water.
Google picks South Africa for its first cloud region in Africa. Makes
Sea
sense.
of Africa.
They are going to, Google has their own cable just for them between Europe and Africa. So they're going to use that to run some wireless and other telecom solutions to South Africa. Cloud services.
Remember Project Loon, the Internet by Balloon? They also experimented with that to avoid having to have physical infrastructure, because the physical infrastructure they can't protect.
Was that Google? I thought that was Facebook who did the balloon.
It was Google.
Yeah.
Was it Google?
And there's so much lawlessness that physically running fiber or physically running anything of value is difficult, because people are highly suspect of it. They might tear it down.
But now you have countries more and more who are saying that, no, you're not allowed to store our data in another country. So you have to have a cloud infrastructure, right? So this seems to be their answer to that. And if you're a Facebook and you need to run Facebook in Africa and they pass these laws, hey, you're going to go to Google, at least in the short term, right?
Yeah.
And Google in China, on the other hand, rapidly disappearing. They have gotten rid of pretty much everything.
Google has now shut down the translate service in China, except in Hong Kong, because no one was using it. Was no one using it because no one liked it, or because the Great Firewall prevented you from getting to it?
But I think the real reason they shut it down is because with all of their other products banned, they got no advantage of you using it.
Yeah.
Like, why do they care? That was to drive you into all the other stuff. So why bother?
I have to say, Google Translate's probably the best one. Like, if I need to translate something, I usually go there.
It's okay.
Yeah.
It's fairly good.
I'm sure it's not perfect, but
Chrome doing it in websites can usually give you the main idea of what you're reading if it's a news story. Now, when they canceled Stadia, I immediately thought, I was like, oh, can you repurpose those controllers for anything? And I was like, nah, I bet Google didn't let you do that. Turns out it's maybe up in the air.
Stadia controllers could become e-waste unless Google issues a Bluetooth update. One firmware push could let Stadia fans keep their favorite wireless controllers. Why? Because the controllers talk directly to the cloud to lower latency.
But they do have an old crappy Bluetooth chip just for setup, because obviously when you're first setting it up, you need to connect to a computer. So here's the question, right? Will they make the argument, no, we can't do that because it's a bad Bluetooth chip and we don't want you to have a bad experience?
bad experience is maybe better than no experience at all.
They'll argue differently. They're like, no, our name is on this. We can't have that.
I should design a replacement level 1 controller that like piggybacks on the inside of it and like, look.
Well, somebody's already done that. Someone has piggybacked on a wireless phone connection through the Bluetooth. And then somebody else had a different, but they're not useful hacks. It's just.
How quickly will you get lawyered up on if you do something like that?
This hardware is abandoned. What do you mean?
Yeah, I mean,
I'm not allowed to do this?
I guess, do the license agreements and the terms of service stay intact after you wind it down?
Actually, if I'm selling a kit to physically modify something you own, I should be in the clear legally.
Should be.
Yeah, that's a big if.
Krista, I thought that you would have a great reaction to this, of course, because you seem very sensitive to filling the skies with garbage.
It was ready for a fleet of cubesats flying over cities displaying ads. I saw this.
It's the
Immediately got
Olympics.
upset.
Yeah, so this is not necessarily anybody going to do this. This is just somebody who sat down and crunched the numbers, and based on advertising rates, they believe this could be a viable business opportunity to make money.
If they try to do this anywhere near me, I can imagine me or my neighbors shooting it down.
From space, Krista?
I don't care. I want them down.
What kind of artillery do you have in your backyard?
I want them down.
They do point out that
It makes me so angry.
That would be an amazing international incident. It's like Krista accidentally took out a Russian satellite. It's like, no.
It was displaying Coca-Cola ads and I couldn't take it.
the thing about it is, because of the way that satellites are going to be moving and the Earth is spinning and everything, they expect that you would have like 2 minutes per city of exposure. So you would need worldwide ads. Like you would need an ad that can be adapted to different areas. You know?
It's like Times Square, but the sky.
It just makes me want to like throw my fist through some drywall. Like, it makes me so angry. Can we have no peace? For sake.
Beep that, please.
Sorry, yeah.
3622.
And this one I threw in because it's just so obvious that the streaming world is more and more consolidating to go right back to where TV was. We will have accomplished absolutely nothing by the end of this.
Showtime chief's departure signals Paramount is moving forward on its plan to merge streaming services. Sadhorn.mp3.
Now they refer to, I suppose, when it's coming over the cable and you don't have any control over it, it's not on demand. They're now calling that linear television. Whereas, like on demand television is the opposite. But they're saying that what they might do is somehow try to put everything that's on Paramount Plus on linear Showtime and vice versa. So somehow Showtime subscribers would get Paramount Plus broadcasts, but not have on demand. I don't understand who would want that. Basically, they don't know what to do with Showtime, but they got some hit shows, so they're like, I don't know.
Everybody's going to have to learn how to incant their own hard drive where media shows up.
Oh, the magical hard drive?
Sometimes things just appear.
This is a level, dear rights holders, this is a level of ridiculous and onerousness that is so far beyond the pale that I will not participate. Sincerely, the average consumer.
One of my favorite things about my magic hard drive is that it sources almost everything from those European countries that have such draconian rules.
There's a few that are much more open to that kind of thing. I think like Iceland.
Not the ones that I get stuff from.
Yeah.
And of course, we've already had some Activision Blizzard headlines, but Overwatch 2. Now, Krista, I only added one story. There were so
There were a
many.
lot, yeah.
So just
Like we're talking about quality doom scroll, but we mostly were talking about like geopolitical stuff. But like the Blizzard doom scroll has been pretty good this week too.
well, why don't we'll do this headline, but please give us a roundup of the Overwatch 2 launch.
I am not playing it, but I follow a lot of content creators and people who are in the community who do want to play it, except nobody can get in. I think it launched on it's either Monday or Tuesday, and basically if you do get in, which it takes forever, a lot of times you start firing up a game and you get dropped immediately.
They've also axed their controversial phone number requirement.
Yeah, that's what this one's about.
Blizzard axed its controversial Overwatch 2 phone number requirement. I think we talked about this last week where they required a phone number for you to have an account. Now, if you played Overwatch 1, that is no longer a requirement. But if you're a new user, it still is.
Now, we did get some engagement of people defending Overwatch 2.
We were one of the leading Overwatch not 2 streams on the last day you could stream Overwatch.
Yeah, for Overwatch 1, which I was confused by.
But here's the thing. It wouldn't Blizzard had partnered with Twitch and already killed Overwatch 1. So we were in the Overwatch 2 category.
Yeah.
And somehow we were like number 9 on the list.
Which is insane. We're not that big of a channel.
We should be number like 900 on the list.
I think if we were to stream Overwatch 2 now, that would be the case because they have, a squad of big streamers that they've paid to play the game, and so now we would be much further down the list.
That was
but
probably like an emergency call that night,
Yeah.
right?
they were like, nobody's playing this, so well, I mean, we were playing Overwatch 1 too.
We've
but
whitelisted your IP address so that you can get past all of the stuff.
that's what they did. So streamers were able to get in. Now they were still getting kicked a lot because the servers were janky, but like they had a separate queue away from all the plebs.
My heart goes out to the computer janitors on the inside of Blizzard that got the executive order that was, by the way, we're not going to have another round of beta. We need all those servers to be online and ready for all the players in like 20 minutes. But it's like, I've automated most of that, but not all of it.
But your week is ruined.
Yeah.
You're working around the clock, and then you get another email. I was like, hey guys, I hate to do this, sorry about this, but remove the phone number thing. That's gone now.
That's yeah. Also, we need a whole separate server just for the big streamers. That way, when people go to check the game out, they don't see just a loading screen for hours.
I'm going to pull 3 or 4 guys, and that's going to be the Pokemon team.
I mean, to be fair, some of the streamers did have to wait in the queue and they got kicked a few times as well, but most of them were able to get in a lot quicker than the average player.
Wow.
That is the level of janitoring that is, it's just sad. It's very
Yeah.
sad.
Now, I've not checked it out. Obviously, you say you're not playing either, but what's the queue at right now? Have they resolved this yet?
No, I don't think so. I think it's better than it was, but people are still struggling to get in.
The salt yesterday was really, like, it's been building all week, and yesterday, ooh,
Yeah, it's been at least 2 or 3 days where people haven't been able to log in.
there were some big streamers that had a laundry list of complaints.
What would you estimate? How many players do they shed per hour of this nonsense?
A lot. Well, and the other thing that was cracking me up, I was watching ML7. He's a support player. And I was watching his match and like he was hitting tab to like look at the stats on the screen and like nothing was showing up. So like the UI's busted too. You can't see things like healing or damage or elimination. So
If only the Battleborn team had been on standby, now would be their time to shine.
I bet under normal circumstances, if API calls are failing, it drops you.
yeah.
But then they were like, no, don't let them fail. I don't care if they don't get the information. Just keep them playing.
Yeah, well, and then that kind of ruins the experience a little bit because it's like, well, I don't know how to tell who's doing well, who's doing poorly, what do I need to change.
We could round up a few people from the channel and do an Unreal Tournament 2004 capture the flag and show them how it should be done. Because like the capture the flag mechanic with the vehicles and the different stuff with like an 8v8. Oh, that was the perfect
I
experience.
think that's just pure nostalgia. I mean, other games have done that since then.
With Overwatch 2, I mean, Blizzard always kind of has rough launches, but I expected it to be resolved after like a day. And they're still struggling, I think.
Well, here's the biggest question. Who do you think is behind the DDoS?
Just Blizzard.
Yeah,
It's Jeff Kaplan.
I think it's made up because they just screwed up the launch.
Jeff Kaplan's like, you tried to move on without me.
Yeah.
No, sir.
If I can't have you, no one will.
Now, what do we got for Friday?
Friday, we have probably more robot than we've ever had.
Wow.
An astonishing amount of robot and not even that much space this week.
Yeah, we got some follow-ups to the Elon Musk stories from last week. That's good. And, more stories about robots that are going to take all of the
We
regular
forgot
jobs.
to include the story about Elon Musk buying Twitter.
Social media.
yeah.
Wait a minute.
We just did social, right? Am I losing my mind?
Did I forget?
I think I noticed that and forgot to mention it.
There's no social media stories at all here.
Oh no!
What have I done?
This was all business.
That means I oopsed the one tab.
Oh no!
Oh no! Do you want to cut or do you want to just talk?
Let's just talk a little bit.
Why don't you tell us about Amazon's Rings of Power?
Oh, well, okay. I'm gonna say a spoiler here, so like skip a few seconds. But they killed Celeborn, who's Galadriel's husband, and like,
That's not canon.
no, not he's in Lord of the Rings. So it's like what? And everyone's like, well, they'll probably bring him in later. She just thinks he's dead, and I'm like, does that make it any better? Like, okay, they're doing that so that way she can have a romance with totally not Sauron.
There was somebody on the forum that had a very long post that I started to read, and I think it was the forum, might have been a YouTube comment, and they were really upset because the last few episodes were like total clown world, and then there was one episode where they reeled it back in. And I was like, okay, this is less clown world, and then that happened, and they were just like, I'm out.
Yeah, that was so I've been watching a live stream. There's a guy named Nerd of the Rings who does like lore videos and stuff like that, and he's been doing live watch alongs. I'm not watching the show, but I'm loving watching him because like he's trying really hard to be positive. And last night when that got revealed, his face, he was like, he didn't even know how to react, and then the chat just started going really fast.
Is it over?
No, it's one more episode,
Oh, the big finale.
which everyone thought, you know, because that episode that was good, everyone was like, okay, they're really going to start building now. And then this episode was boring again.
And they're going to be in the Amazon board, and it's like, okay, we spent $500 million on this TV series because we expected it. I mean, you know, what's a good run for a TV series these days? Like 7-10 years? It's like
At least 5 seasons.
we figured we'd get 5 years out of this, so it'd be a good investment to just get all this stuff going. It's questionable as to whether or not we should do a season 2.
So I think the contract was they have to do 5 seasons. I think their budget will be dramatically reduced.
It's so hilarious. Just like guys in jeans walking around.
I mean, that's about what the costume works like anyway. But they did an interview. I think it was Hollywood Reporter did an interview with the showrunners, and they came across, you know how like sometimes we have to do meetings with like marketing guys who are just idea people, but they never had to execute on anything. That entire article read like people who are like that.
Do we know, those showrunners, have they done other stuff that we
No.
know? Oh, brand new. Huh?
They have no writing credits. Wow. The only reason they got hired is because J.J. Abrams put in a call for them.
That'll definitely not end badly.
All right, yeah. It turns out that we just had so many business stories. We did 45 minutes of business alone. I know it was going to be crazy this week. I completely ignored social. So here we go.
Good thing we caught that.
Unsorted
And rapid fire.
social media. Let's start out with this one. I think is a little crazy. I do not agree with this at all, even though I hate social media.
Coroner lists Instagram algorithm as contributing cause of UK teen's death. Updated. So the Coroner has walked this back just a bit.
So the cause of death was suicide. But the coroner said, no, this young girl would have never killed herself if she had not looked at. Now, the numbers were insane. She had seen hundreds of thousands of TikTok videos in like a month. And Pinterest. She had pinned tens of thousands of things on Pinterest, all to do with suicide. So like there is all that content out there, like I guess it's pro suicide stuff. I don't know.
Oh, there's all kinds of weird communities like that. There's stuff for like pro eating disorder as well, which is really disturbing.
Yeah, the Ars Technica article talks about some of those kinds of things, but if you seek help if you find yourself in this pattern, seek help.
I think these young people are so conditioned to use social media for everything.
Yeah, the feedback loop where it's like, I've done this, but like, you ever close the big internet and get on the little internet?
Yeah.
And it's like, you shouldn't do that, but I mean, I kind of get it.
Every time I poop. And this one I almost put in the block of like, oh, everything is terrible, but the social media was so anemic this week.
Facebook reportedly laying off thousands of employees. The reality is that they are being forced out. So that's the headline, but the reality is probably that. But what the memo from Facebook that triggered all this was, hey, department heads, you need to identify the underperforming employees. And it's weird because there hasn't been a memo like that before.
And it's the old Amazon plan. Although Zuckerberg took it a little farther, Amazon aims to fire the bottom 10%. Zuckerberg went 15%. So if you are the bottom 15%, your manager has to identify you and then put you in the acronym was
A
PIP.
destruction to cube.
It was PIP, Performance Improvement Plan. And the estimation is that you will never escape the performance improvement.
We have to think of a funnier acronym about how you're going to kill people in the pit.
That'll be our title channel.
It's like, but Zuck, I'm already putting in 60 hours a week. How am I underperforming? I don't know.
But the whole time he's forcing you to do the meeting in the metaverse, and he's like fighting a dragon. He's like, you just don't work hard enough. You don't want it enough.
We're trialing this for our new corporate sponsor, Sweet Baby Ray's.
No.
Sweet Baby Ray's Barbecue Dragon.
They do the metaverse, like you have to consult directly with Mark through the metaverse, and anybody that throws up is fired immediately.
Oh,
We don't need weakness in this company. And Instagram of course, getting killed because not only did the whole Apple thing disrupt them, but overall, everybody's getting killed and people are getting tired of Facebook and Instagram. So what do you do if you're Mark Zuckerberg?
Instagram to increase ad load as Meta files revenue decline. What could possibly cause people to leave our platform? I don't know, the ads and the bloat. Let's add more ads.
And they're really cranking the ads up too. They're going to start putting ads at the end of like the short videos. What does TikTok call those? Reels? Is that what that is?
Yeah, I think so.
So they point out that with those short TikTok style videos, a lot of people watch them 7-8 times. So now you're going to watch the ad at the end every time you let it repeat.
I was on Twitch watching Overwatch stuff the other day, and I had to sit through 5 ads. I just tabbed out. I was like, whatever, just roll them.
And they are going to increase more of the scroll ads as well. As you're scrolling, a lot more ads.
They're doing that to the marketplace as well, and it's insufferable.
And the metaverse itself, of course, again, kind of doesn't exist. I mean, we have a couple of products, but I don't think they're setting the world on fire. I feel like this is a little bit of a walk back, don't you?
Yeah. Tim Cook is the latest CEO to question the metaverse. Could the average person define the metaverse? Tim Cook doesn't think so. What this doesn't say is that, Tim Cook really probably does think augmented reality is what is going to get people excited, because you can hold up your phone and you look through the world through your iPhone. What could be better for Apple's bottom line?
What I found telling about this article is he was like, yeah, VR is very immersive and people like it, but they're not willing to wear it all day long, which means that in those circles that Tim Cook is talking to the other billionaires, they're envisioning a world where we wear those all day long.
These people don't have to like work or do anything, care for their children, cook. They just can hang out in the metaverse all day like we do.
Yeah, I've seen some of those conversations from him are literally because they don't want to wear something, but they will look through their phone. So you hold up your phone, and you look through your phone to see whatever it is around you.
You get off the big internet and you look at the little internet.
There don't need to be road signs anymore because you just look through your phone and it's like, oh, here's the label for things.
But I think walking like that with AR will be the same as driving with Bluetooth. It's still distracting.
Yeah.
Because you're still doing something other than
looking at the world around you.
Yeah. Well, this is what you alluded to, Krista, that exposed the failure that I had to put social media in entirely. There were so many stories here. We're going to round them all up with one article.
Elon Musk offered to buy Twitter at a lower price in recent talks.
So they went back and forth. It turned out he tried to get them to cut the price a couple of times, and they're like, no, bro, it is what it is. And then he kind of went, tried some other things. There was a lot of headlines, and then he's like, I'll take it. The original price.
Now, we're saying that we're recording this on a Friday. Elon Musk's notorious for changing his mind on Fridays after we're done recording. So
it's also true that Twitter is saying we don't think he'll really follow through with it because the banks, we've already subpoenaed the banks and they haven't said that they've agreed to anything.
Also, Elon Musk's text messages that were in that discovery are pretty fascinating, where he's talking with other billionaires and they really are like planning our lives. You should read those. Now, the court where they were about to go to court has extended that, but they say they want this deal done by like end of October, or the court case starts back again. So it could be another delaying tactic. Who knows?
that kind of makes sense though, because you don't want to go into that. You don't want to go into Thanksgiving and Christmas worried about your legal troubles.
But that's exactly what will happen. Yeah, the holiday season in court.
Plus also the economic collapse with every passing day that Musk dawdles. You know, he has to sell more and more stock in order to free up that much liquid.
Well, and all of his financial backers, I think, for the most part,
Yeah.
are also backed out.
I mean, he could DIY it, but it's much worse now to DIY it than it was.
Here's the engagement challenge for the cult of engagement, which we've described our contributors as. How many Musk children will he see on Thanksgiving?
He'll say he's South African, so he doesn't celebrate things.
Do you think he'll even FaceTime some of them?
He probably won't remember all of them. Right? Like, he thinks he's got all of them, but he's forgotten one. Ooh.
He's sitting in a room and he's like, oh God, that one looks vaguely like me. Is that one?
We need to write a screenplay for a Home Alone remake, but it's just Elon Musk and all of his kids and all of the wives or former wives.
What if they forget multiple kids? Then it's like a battle royale. There is no burglar. It's just the kids fighting in the house.
Yeah. Or the burglar is like Elon Musk's estranged oldest kid, who's like 10 years older than all the other kids.
Or Mark Zuckerberg.
Oh,
A
yeah.
robotic
He's a
intruder.
robot.
Well, this is disappointing. I do consume a lot of YouTube videos, but I listen to most of them. So I think I'll be okay with this.
YouTube is asking some users to purchase a premium subscription in order to watch 4K. I think I'm mostly okay with this.
I mean, I don't love it. I understand why they're doing it because I know that's expensive, but like, I really like Adventure Archives and all their stuff is in 4K.
I watch a lot of cat videos in 4K.
Really?
And they are fantastic. Yeah.
I guess I like nature videos in general, yeah.
YouTube's kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place here because they really want full control of the platform, and they want the analytics, and they want the ability to inject ads. But serving 4K video to billions of users is very, I mean, it is very expensive. Algorithmically, we can fix that with better compression algorithms, but even running, AV1, H.265, it's not dramatically better. I mean, it is dramatically better, but it's not dramatically better enough over the standard compression algorithms. So YouTube's still going to face those kind of issues. If YouTube adopted something that was more peer-to-peer, Google could do that. They could scale up the algorithm, and they could do some really interesting stuff to do peer-to-peer video. But then their analytics and their ad delivery is much, much less valuable because they lose control over the platform. So I don't think they're going to do that either.
Yeah. I don't know. It's YouTube, I do use it a lot for free. I have to admit. So maybe I'd be okay with giving them a very tiny amount.
That'd be another subscription service like that article. You have to forego groceries so you can get YouTube 4K.
That is going to be how YouTube screws up. It's like, if it's like $3, okay. Yeah. But if it's like $8, forget that.
Yeah.
And they won't do $3.
Yeah. They'll
try to bundle in a bunch of other stuff I don't care about.
You know what we have on Patreon? It's a $2 sub. We also have fabulous merchandise at store.level1text.com.
You won't get any 4K content.
Also,
well, Meta, do you remember that time that they met with another company to talk about buying their product, and then instead of buying it, they just copied it?
That's happened at least 20 times.
Company? No, I'm not talking about Instagram. No, I'm not talking about WhatsApp, although they did buy those. There were like 8 different examples of that throughout the years, but they're still doing it.
Meta ordered to pay $175 million for copying Green Beret Veterans app.
oof.
So they met with him, and they were going to buy it, and then somebody said, we could just clone this for less. And they did.
This was like walkie-talkie style wireless communication via data. Because this guy had been in the field and he was like, those radios are trash. We need a better solution. I'm going to build it. Facebook met with them and they're like, ooh, we'd like to have that. And then after that, Facebook Talk happened.
Mm.
And you know how Facebook does that thing with the Facebook Pixel and it's everywhere and it's awful. And they've been like, how many fines have they paid?
That is at least 30% of the root of Cambridge Analytica.
And the misery that we all have using the internet. Well, the other company that's taking Facebook's place has seen that and they're like, yeah, we like that business model.
This is from Consumer Reports. Yes, that Consumer Reports. How TikTok tracks you across the web even if you don't use the app. The same techniques that Google, Meta, and other companies use to collect personal data. Why? Because it's valuable.
And because they're buying ads with these platforms, and this helps them track their ad performance. So
Been getting a lot of TikTok ads on YouTube lately. That's because it's super effective.
And they pointed out a lot of big companies.
I like that image with the little fish hook. Yeah.
Alberta Miranda. Nice. Nicely done. I can't remember what the big companies were, but they were actually huge. And some .gov addresses have TikTok pixels. Think about that. Government organizations. You've paid them to build a website and add a pixel that spies on you. It's your money. And finally, I would not have sorted this last if I had sorted these. But a really, really rich, obnoxious man made a very stupid comment. And I'm kind of excited he's getting punished for it.
Apple VP leaves company after vulgar comment goes viral on TikTok. He had some not nice things to say about women.
We can read this one. There's nothing like offensive in terms of words. Just, what an asshole.
Does it not actually publish what he wrote?
It's there.
No, it's
I see
there.
it.
I'm just not.
Right there.
I'm blind.
Oh, here we go.
Race cars, play golf, and fondle women.
A certain kind of woman. Perhaps Dolly Parton would be his kind of woman.
But I take the weekends and major holidays off. It's like, that is unbecoming of an executive.
But okay, ignoring the sexism part, does he think that like playing golf and fondling women is work? Because he's like, I
Well-
also take holidays off, and it's like,
He was parodying. Have you seen the movie Arthur? I don't know. Chris just hasn't seen it.
I don't watch movies.
But the movie Arthur is about a guy who is insanely rich and a terrible alcoholic, and like just how he interacts with the world. I couldn't get into it, but people consider it to be a really good comedy.
Huh.
So he was quoting. I think it's not a perfect quote, but I think he was adapting something that guy said to be just like, this is what I would say because I'm an obnoxious rich person. So it could have been tongue in cheek,
But he just didn't think,
maybe
I
if
guess
there's
seeing the context of it might change it, but it sounds pretty tone deaf from the article.
when you got a camera in your face and you're in that position, you got to know better than that.
It's too bad that Apple isn't wealthy because they're building a product that's solid that people really like and want to use. It's because they have people like this.
Yeah. And I think it was actually probably his job to go around to these trade shows and stuff like that. So,
Are you saying he was a booth babe?
no, but he probably did fondle a couple of booth babes. So, he was probably, what he was saying was probably true. He went to car shows, got to drive the nice cars, got to play golf because he was in all these resort locations. And then, the young ladies that went along with that.
Yeah, some of that kind of stuff was really super disturbing because, like, at Computex, there would be that kind of a thing.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, are you here? Do you live nearby? And like Shenzhen, or is the company headquarters are here in Taipei? And it's like, oh no, they flew me in from Romania. And it's like, ooh.
Oh.
Poor guy. Now he'll have to just sit at home and be rich.
Anyway,
All right.
this
That
is
was
a long
marathon.
episode. We will see you guys on Friday.